I'd like to introduce our next speaker, David Heaster. He's the Director of Digital Practice at IGATE. Here's David.
Thank you. Please, you haven't heard me yet. Hold your applause. Thanks, everybody, for coming to this session. Much appreciated. I think we should at least generate some discussion on some interesting topics in terms of disruption within banking, as is the spirit of the track. I'm from a company called IGATE, which we'll get into in a second here, but we had a little story come out this morning. Anybody hear that? There's somebody back there. Yeah, so we were recently merged with a company called Capgemini. Very early, just announced this morning. So lots of changes will be coming our way, I'm sure, all very good. We are a services organization, work with many different verticals. Banking and financial services is certainly one of them. Anyone heard of IGATE? A couple people. We're based out of Bridgewater, New Jersey. We have 34,000 employees across the globe, most of them in India. We do about 1.3 billion in sales. And like I said, we're recently acquired by a French company. This is awesome. So the next thing I want to talk about is banking work that we have done. All right, so in the banking and financial services area, we've secured a large outcome-based contract with UBS, and that was about a year or so ago. All this is on our website. You can look at things we do in the banking industry. We were also selected as the IT testing partner for Associated Bank Corp., which is a big win for us. And then with MetLife, we won a $100 million global infrastructure services contract. This is the type of work that we do in all different verticals, and certainly banking as well. And most recently, we've worked with Rio Tinto, and we basically helped them create an innovation center in India. So we're doing things with them, taking their business to the next level. So today I'm going to talk about 3 technologies that hopefully have some interest, and you may have heard of some and some you may not. We're going to talk about beacons, beacons and branches. Everybody familiar with iBeacon or the low-energy Bluetooth beacons? We're going to talk about digital wallets, which is on everyone's mind, even though they've been around a while. And then lastly, Bitcoin. So beacons and branches, this is Devika. She talked about the fact that beacons are going to be out there, and banking and financial services will begin to use them. And there are really 2 aspects of beacons that I like to think about anyway. One is you can make your customer's life easier. When they walk into the bank, you'll know that they're there. They can automatically log into systems and things like that. But also, you can clientele. Anybody know what clienteling is? So a lot of what's happening, at least what I've seen, my background is B2C and B2B retail in the digital space. And in the retail area, beacons are getting very big. And clienteling, which is basically taking care of the client when they enter your 4 walls, has long been an important aspect. And now with beacons, you can kickstart some of that stuff. When someone comes in with your app and they're logged into it, they walk past a beacon, your systems can know they're there. You can alert the sales staff. They can come running. You can even say, is this a high spender with us? Do they have millions of dollars in our bank accounts? Should we really take care of them or put them in the queue? So St. George, if anybody's familiar with that bank, they've been looking at this. And it's just an example of one bank that's already started this in their Sydney branches. So here was the fun part that isn't going to work. You're going to be able to, I was going to do the 21st century version of raising your hands. You're going to text me your answers. But as it's, it's a live demo because it's not working. So digital wallet, just show of hands. Who uses a digital wallet every day? Who knows what they are but don't trust them? don't want to do them. Okay, who's saying what's a digital wallet? Everybody should know that one, right? So if you look at Wikipedia, they're going to tell you that it's a wallet for your electronic devices. You can put digital versions of all your credit cards in there, and then you use that to either online shop or in stores with the phone. So people are saying, is this going to be the death of cash? Wall Street doesn't necessarily think so. But others are saying, geez, if it is the death of cash, it's going to make small business have to pony up systems to handle these wallets and that type of thing. So that's something that small businesses are looking at. And other people are just basically saying there's going to be a big fight here. Who today uses PayPal? PayPal is huge, right? And who uses iPay? Couple of us, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We've obviously got our ear to the track on this one. I personally think, and this is Dave talking, that Apple, with its confined architecture, is going to have a bit of a challenge when it comes to how do you support the 70% of the market that doesn't have an Apple device. But be that as it may, Apple has long been a company that doesn't necessarily have the first or the best, but they end up owning the market, or at least are disruptive in the market. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I personally think the winner is going to be someone that's technology agnostic, that can work on an iPhone, Android, even a BlackBerry. I think they're still out there. So Bitcoin. Who knows what Bitcoin is? Who's got a bunch of Bitcoins and does business with Bitcoins? Anybody? Way back there. There's always one in the crowd. Congratulations. Anybody have any Bitcoin? I have 6 cents worth of Bitcoin. I've been reading up a lot on this. Anybody not know what Bitcoin is? Everybody at least knows what it is, right? But the question is, what is it going to do to banking? So Satoshi Nakamoto invented this and opened it up in 2009, kind of to the world, if you will. It's extremely fascinating what's happening here, because people can do transactions without having to put a third party in the middle. But obviously what's happening is third parties are getting in the middle, and they're enabling the rest of us to use Bitcoin, right? You may have a pile of Bitcoin in your possession, but if no one takes it, you can't spend it. I don't know if anyone loves The Simpsons as much as I do, but when they went to Krusty Land and they convinced Homer to get Krusty dollars, and then he walks in and nobody accepts Krusty dollars. Anyway, that's kind of what Bitcoin is like, until third parties come in and enable us to use that Bitcoin like any currency, which is what's happening. So again, Bitcoins are fascinating. I was talking with some folks about it, and this is what he said. The guy that I was talking to said, every other currency on the planet is violence-based currency. And I had to step back and say, this sounds like a very Zen topic. I'm just trying to understand what Bitcoins are. He said, every other currency on the planet is violence-based, and Bitcoin is the only one that's maths-based. So he thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And the reason for that is Bitcoin is not owned by any government. It's a peer-to-peer solution, much like the internet. It's just owned by everyone. You mine Bitcoins by having strong enough, fast enough computers that run through the algorithm that was created for Bitcoin. And in the end, it pops out a number. And that number can only be obtained through this process called mining. There are a finite number of Bitcoins. I want to say 22 million, something like that. It takes a lot of power to get a Bitcoin. You and I couldn't do it with our computers. You need a room of computers. And from what I understand, if you have a room of super fast computers, the energy it takes for you to cool those down and run them will cost you more than the Bitcoins you will mine from it. So it's not easy to obtain them. Once they're there forever. There's a finite amount. The question is, are people going to start using Bitcoin to back currency and or, just use Bitcoin as the currency? Personally, Dave looks at this and thinks, if America somehow falls out of favor, or at least falls out more so, and the global standard becomes something other than the US dollar for trade, could Bitcoin come in and be that global standard? Very interesting to think about. I mean, this is great to do over a beer, or come over to the IGATE booth and we'll talk about it. So here you see in this picture, this is it Korea? Singapore, where people are queuing up to get Bitcoins from Bitcoin ATM. And in regions where they don't have a lot of banking infrastructure, Bitcoin has really taken off because it's easy for someone to maintain them, and it's easy to conduct transactions back and forth. If someone wanted to, I could help you get a proper Bitcoin app on your software and give you a couple cents worth of Bitcoins. It takes literally seconds. It is extremely secure. No one has cracked it since its inception, and people have been trying night and day. You can't copy or make fraudulent counterfeit Bitcoins. The way the architecture is set up, it simply doesn't allow it. So are they going to be viable, or something that the banking and financial groups have to worry about? Maybe, maybe not, but many big players are already looking into this, and some pretty surprising players, I think. Not only Overstock and Tiger Direct, who got some early techno nerd points by accepting Bitcoins a while ago. Now you can go into any brick and mortar, and again, this is all available through third parties. That's how this thing works. It's much like a PayPal. As soon as PayPal starts accepting Bitcoins, you can put a Visa card, a MasterCard, and a Bitcoin account on your PayPal. Whoever accepts PayPal now can suddenly accept Bitcoin. So it's got the potential to really get some legs. So who here thinks Bitcoin is just a fad and nothing to consider? Come on. Everybody thinks that Bitcoin's legitimate? That's impressive. It's gray. It is definitely, but certainly disruptive, to say the least. So the idea behind this session was really just to get people thinking about some disruptive technologies. The concept behind this last slide is just you tell me, and you're supposed to be able to text me what you think. And you can't really see it much, but what we're going to do now is open it up to questions, and certainly questions for me or for the group at large, because this is really interesting stuff to talk about, especially amongst a bunch of bankers. So without further ado, questions from the crowd. There's got to be some questions. Yes. Which government said this? The U.S. government has stated that? Yeah, maybe you can.
That they don't consider it a currency, so it's like any other security. So if you make any capital gains on it, you have to pay taxes. Yeah. Does that need to change?
Yeah, so I think everyone heard the question, but it's interesting. I almost look at Bitcoin as like a precious metal. It is a finite resource, and just like you can buy and sell gold, but you can't walk into Kmart and shave off a little piece of gold and get something for it. So, I think whether they can tax you on capital gains or not, I haven't heard that. I think it's, again, interesting. I know that there are stories of people who have asked their employer to pay them in Bitcoin, and they have, in some cases, done it because they've showed them how you could pay me in Bitcoin. It's interesting, though. There's a whole counterculture within Bitcoin. When I look at Bitcoin, I just look at it as an interesting alternative to cash and a non-political, version of cash. As this guy I was talking with said, it's non-violent based. It's just math based. And if you don't, like you could come up, if I had $1 million worth of Bitcoins and you came up and shot me, you could take my cell phone, but you wouldn't have access to my Bitcoins. It's just not how it works. So whether they're going to accept it more in the future, I don't know. I think it will remain like a commodity and like a precious metal, and people may back their fiat currency with it. Questions?
With Bitcoin, one of the problems I think that they have is that once your wallet is lost,
Yeah.
So what advances in technology are they going to make in order for that not to happen? Because I can see an instance where maybe a grandparent who enrolls in Bitcoin later on in the future passes away and doesn't have that ability to pass on their wallet going forward. How do we pass that on?
Great question. And I don't know the answer, but these are the types of things that are going to be talked about. The way I would look at it is an asset that has to be dealt with, just like a piece of land or a piece of property. So the lawyers are going to get involved, certainly, to understand that. But it's important to understand that Bitcoin as a currency, it's a smart currency. You can read things on there where it says a car can now own itself because you tie the Bitcoins to the car. And in fact, you can tie the ignition to the Bitcoin. It has things that other currencies just can't do. Now, can you pass it on to your child? There's potentially some issues there. But all right, I'm being yanked off stage. So I don't think there's any other time for questions. But certainly drop by the IGATE booth. Hopefully we've just got you guys some juices flowing thinking about this stuff. We would love to talk to you about what we do today with things like beacons and what we're looking to do with some of our clients in that area. We don't do a heck of a lot with Bitcoin, but we probably will shortly. So anything else? Thanks for dealing with our technical issues, and have a great rest of your conference. Cheers.